company policy. I can't have people working 9 hours, more than 9 hours per day. It's against union rules too. And I can't have people just coming whenever they please. Needless to say, I didn't like my manager too much after that conversation. And I'm sure many of us have had similar conversations in our lives. Talking to someone, asking someone a question, and the person just looks like a big no. No is the first answer that always comes out of their mouth. We would probably call these people a negative thinking person. Someone who can't see positive outcomes, possibilities, because they're always thinking about the bad part. Which leads me to a term which has been brought up many times in our club, and many people in this room subscribe to, is about positive thinking. There's a club in town, and actually I was inspired to do the speech because I saw the excellent speech Kathy did about a month ago about the ants, automatic negative thoughts, and it was an excellent speech, and I thought I could maybe add something to that. I wasn't here, but I saw it on YouTube, thanks to Alec. So I am seeing myself as a positive thinking person. I'm very optimistic. I believe just about anything is possible if people put their minds to it. But I also find that sometimes people find me negative, overly critical, asking too many questions, and being resistant to this or that. And I think most of us also find ourselves in that position sometimes. The problem with if you exclude negative thoughts, you are afraid to be critical of what you're thinking. So what do I really think about the positive versus negative? I'll use an example. 4 people are sitting, a family sitting on a deck in southern Texas. It's a very hot day, and someone suggests, it's an afternoon, says, why don't we go to Abilene for dinner? Abilene is a town 50, 60 miles away, and somebody says, oh, I've never been to Abilene, you know, let's go. And people says, you know, I don't want to be the boring person here who says no, I don't want to be the negative person, so everybody says yes, let's go. They go on the car ride. It's a terrible trip, it's hot, everybody's sweating, no air conditioning in the car. They get to the diner where they're eating, and the dinner is terrible too. And when they get back home a couple hours later, somebody said, you know, I would actually like to stay at home. And they said, well, me too. I just went along because everybody else was enthusiastic, and the person who proposed the idea, he said, well, I just had something, and everybody was so gung-ho, so I didn't think more of it. This is an example of what people call groupthink. People are afraid of asking a question of being seen as negative, and you know, as actually the person who came up with the story calls this as the Abilene paradox. Another example of negative thought is perfectionism. And thanks to you, Kathy, I got that idea from there too. Perfectionism can cause a lot of damage to ourselves. You know, we think badly of ourselves. Sometimes we don't even start doing a project because we think we'll never live up to our ideals. But perfectionism has a useful side too. Think of the high achiever, the artists, musicians, scientists, athletes. If they didn't have those extremely high expectations of themselves, they would never achieve those goals. A third example I want to use is of people who are always complaining, unhappy about the situation. People we say for whom the glass is always half empty as opposed to half full. They don't appreciate what's there because they're only looking at what's missing. It's like an example of, you know, give my kids some cookies, and one of my kids say, why is his cookie bigger than mine? forgetting and actually, well, 5 minutes earlier they didn't have cookies at all. So appreciate what you got. Thinking like this can make us generally unhappy, but I heard someone recently say maybe happiness is overrated. You know, somebody said most of the social progress we've had in the world is because of people who have been unhappy with what they have. Think of the women who didn't have the right to vote. They were extremely unhappy about that, so they fought to change that. Civil rights movement in the United States, people were extremely unhappy about the discrimination. And think of the same for apartheid in South Africa. So, what are we making of all this? If you're negative all the time, well, we won't achieve anything. We won't even think of any goals. We need to be positive to be able to dream, create, and set goals. But if we are afraid to be too critical, we won't have the discipline to actually meet those goals.